And I'd also like to thank Nick Cole with Xcel Energy coming to give us a quick program overview. Just thinking about wildfires in our community and how they're unfortunately now an ever present reality for our communities across the region. And the growing threat of these destructive fire events require really proactive approaches from all of our sectors. And so when we started this Living with Fire series, we wanted to explore different areas of fire and how it could affect us and really learn more about the different programs and initiatives that are out there. So today's program is to explore the really vital role of Xcel Energy's wildfire mitigation program and kind of going along with preparing and reducing risk of wildfire. And so they're increasing their outreach to help customers and stakeholders understand different roles in reducing wildfire risk and the different steps that Xcel is taking. And so we're really excited to be able to have Nick here with us today to talk to us about their program. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Nick and welcome everybody. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, Allison, thank you for that introduction. Thank you, everybody, for taking some time out your day to talk about Xcel's wildfire efforts. Again, as Allison mentioned, my name is Nicole. I am the area manager for Boulder County and Broomfield. So, like I say, managing all the cities in those counties. I have about 16 slides that I'll go through. And typically the way I go through this slide presentation is I try to get through the slides because most of the time questions are answered throughout. And then the remaining time is open it up for questions that folks might have. And then we could just have a discourse towards the end. So like I say, looking forward to sharing the slide deck with you all. And like I say, towards the end, we'll make sure that there's time for a Q&A session for questions to be answered. But obviously, if something's very pertinent, feel free to hop off mute. But like I said, there will be time to the end for questions to be asked. So yeah, like just really kicking it off, kind of like what Allison said, we're in a situation with climate change. We're experiencing hotter temperatures than we've experienced in Colorado in the past, and that's making Colorado more prone to wildfires, unfortunately. And as time goes on, this is something that not only Xcel, but just, across the globe that we have to take into consideration and take the proper precautions in that effort. And obviously, as time goes on, from an Xcel standpoint, we've seen things that work, and obviously as time goes on, we're trying to figure out different ways to make sure that even though the weather might be changing, different assets are getting brought online, that we are still prepared for these type of situations and providing reliable energy to all of our customers in our service territory. So like I say, Xcel, we definitely pride ourselves on having reliable electricity and gas service. I know a lot of times when I give this slide presentation, a lot of folks, they always say, well, I have outages, so how are you guys at 99.98% reliability? And these numbers are calculated based off of not considering those, wildfire situations and when everything is running smoothly. As you can see, the assets that we currently have, 24,000 miles of transmission lines, which serve heavy energy users. For this group on the call today, distribution lines that serve your guys' homes, a little over 80,000. And then we serve 1.6 million electric customers and 1.5 gas customers. And as this presentation goes on, speak about it a little bit more. But as time goes on, we get new residents that move into Colorado, different companies moving into Colorado. So between our customers, our transmission lines and distribution lines, those are continually growing by the day, literally. So obviously, as we get more assets, more people are coming into Colorado. Xcel has a responsibility to our customers to make sure that we're reliable at all times, and we're taking the proper safety precautions to make sure when we do experience severe weather, wildfires, and different assortments that cause outages, that we're as well prepared as possible. Our breakdown of how we have our electric system in Colorado, we generate electricity, obviously to provide to our customers. As I mentioned before, transmission and distribution. For this call, you all are distribution customers, but our transmission customers are large, heavy energy users. But as I mentioned before, these numbers are continuing to grow just by the demand of data centers, manufacturing facilities, and different companies moving in. And from the distribution side, folks building new homes and folks moving into Colorado. So distribution and transmission are continually growing, which we're proud of. But obviously, as you gain more and more of these assets, we need to make sure that we're as reliable as possible. So the meat and potatoes of the presentation that everyone likes to know, the outages. So um, these are the top 6 outages that we've identified from Xcel. There are obviously some other cases why we do have outages, but these are the main 6 that we commonly see when we do experience outage. So the first one, going back to weather, severe weather. So including that in wildfire, severe storms, high winds. When these events happen, they cause disturbances on our power lines, which can cause outages. And I'll get into how we break down those outages and the different parameters that we have to use to make sure that we can get power back on. Vegetation and trees is the second biggest one. Surprisingly enough, we have some areas that are prone for vegetation to make contact with our power lines. And we have a vegetation team that takes pride in making sure that we get ahead of these type of situations. We have a 94% vegetation rate. So basically that just means our vegetation team has cleared away vegetation from identified areas, but we still from time to time have branches or vegetation disturb our power lines. Unfortunately, folks are not always the best drivers, so we do have instances where vehicles hit our poles, and that obviously causes outages. Equipment related upgrade failures. With everybody on this call, technology changes every day, but also technology is very finicky. So the slightest thing can make, the biggest impacts. And in this case, old equipment or equipment that just failed due to just being weathered or different factors cause outages as well. So we take pride in trying to make sure that we're always have the most up-to-date equipment, but sometimes just being in the field, equipment doesn't hold up, but we do our best to make sure that we get on top of that as fast as possible. Wildlife, 2 weeks ago, actually, we had a case, we had an outage in Boulder. A bird or a squirrel got into our capacitor bank and it caused the outage. So any wildlife from, like I say, squirrels, birds, anything that can come in contact with our power lines, they can cause outages as well. And then that final piece, undergrounding / hit lines. So from the undergrounding standpoint, and I'll get into this later, undergrounding is one of the tactics that we use to kind of help in areas that are wildfire zones, and undergrounding lines is a great way to help mitigate wildfire outages. However, when our transmission lines or distribution lines are underground, if there's ever a flood or if there's just ever any type of outage that causes that underground line to go out, we have to send a crew of guys to physically pull that line from under the ground, and that can cause a long delay time. So underground lines is high risk, but also high reward as well. So like I say, just underground the line isn't always the most straightforward way, but those are just the top 6 reasons why we experience outages in Xcel territory. Outage classification. So we have a breakdown. So momentary outages are just outages that maybe, a flicker came on and off, 5 minutes or less. But like I say, something that just very sudden, but comes right back on. Sustained outages, longer. So, think of your outages that may last an hour, 2 hours in that range or a little longer. And then our planned outages. So for in April when we had our PSPS, our public safety shutoff. These outages occur when, if there's wildfires in the area, other severe circumstances that our leadership team working with different data points that we use and different external stakeholders within the community. If it's determined that, cutting off power would be the safest route for our customers in the area, that is taken through our leadership group. And that is, like I say, a planned outage where we're we're cutting off the power ahead of time just to make sure that everyone's safe. And then major events, think of, wildfire, severe storms where the power is out, 24 hours, 48 hours in those instances. And then again, for planned outages and major events, our team from top to bottom, we don't take these outages lightly. Obviously, a lot of folks feel like that is a infomercial type thing to say, but between our planned outages and major events, we have protocols that we follow just to make sure that everyone is safe. And when a planned outage is instituted, it is not a matter that's taken lightly. And a couple slides in the slide deck, I'll have some of the data points that we use, but we have various data points and stakeholders that we engage with just to ensure that this is the most appropriate matter to make sure everyone is safe in the area. Preparing for outages. I always kick off this slide just by telling folks, Xcel, as everybody on this call knows, like I say, we have room to grow. And like I say, giving communication to our customers on the best ways to prepare, this is another area that we can grow in. I always tell folks when I present this slide deck, or this slide in particular, is what works for myself or what works for your neighbor as far as being prepared is going to look very differently, as you can see on the slides. Some folks have medicines that need to be refrigerated. Some folks have dietary restrictions where certain foods need to be refrigerated, specially or whatnot. And when it comes to being prepared for outages, like I say, some general things, having a first aid kit, having food, some portable chargers, those are just some very high level um, emergency kit, emergency preparedness type of initiatives that you can take on yourself. However, again, depending on what you and your loved ones need at your home, that's going to be very different, maybe from your neighbor next door or whatnot. So on this side, I always say these are just kind of just the basics that, Xcel has determined at this point. But when it comes to being prepared, everyone knows what they need in particular and what their loved ones need. So I always just like to point that out, that folks kind of, it's almost in your best interest to be very creative on what works best for you for your emergency kit and what that means to you to be prepared. But obviously, from an Xcel standpoint, we're working on our end to make sure that we're providing the most up-to-date information and the different ideas that we can come up with just to make sure that everybody is supported and has the necessities that they need during an outage. And now I'm about to go into our mitigation work that we're currently doing at the moment. So since 2020, we've invested over $500 million into wildfire mitigation tactics. As you can see, we replaced distribution poles, substation protections, thinking in the lines of wildlife deterrence to make sure wildlife is less likely to cause outages. You can also see that 94% vegetation management role. Like I say, we have our vegetation management team that has identified areas that we've seen in the past that cause outages, and we take pride in making sure that that's taken care of. And then again, making sure that our transmission and distribution lines are well inspected. So making sure that they're performing the way they need to, or we also, if we need to upgrade certain things in certain areas to make sure that we are, from a mechanical and technical standpoint, as top notch as we can possibly be. And these numbers, again, are continually to grow as time goes on and as we roll out our wildfire mitigation plan. This is probably my favorite slide. Like I say, I am a big kid, so I like pictures. So I'll start from the helicopter and work in a circle. So this slide basically just demonstrates all the different tactics and technologies that we use. So we do use helicopters to help with 3D mapping for our internal folks, just to get a strong idea of what's going on from, wind strength analysis, or just projecting, potential pathways for wildfires and their relation to our company assets. We also use wildfire detection cameras. I can't say how many cameras we have at the moment, but I believe a month ago, we actually had one of our wildfire detection cameras detect a small wildfire that we were able to catch before it actually came in contact with one of our power lines, which was a very great story, and just showing you the evidence that, wildfire detection cameras do work. Our enhanced power safety settings, I'll get into that later, but just in brief, This is one of the settings that we use when we're in our wildfire safety settings, just to make sure that our lines are working properly and won't cause any damage when we are in weather situations that might be prone for wildfires. System hardening, this just kind of goes into making sure that we're protecting our lines the best of our ability so wildlife has a hard time causing an outage. Drones, we use drones to inspect our power lines when we do have outages. In some places like Boulder and obviously throughout Boulder County are very hard for our guys to get out on foot to inspect themselves. So as long as weather permits, not high winds or hail or things of that nature, we do implement drones to help expedite the outage process to give folks their power as soon as possible. We work with the National Weather Service, use them as a data point just to make sure that we're collecting the appropriate weather information to determine, are we going to be in our wildfire safety settings a particular day, or what methods that we need to use just to make sure that we're prepared for certain days. Community outreach, we work with a lot of different external partners throughout different communities to make sure that folks are well educated and providing, assistance in different venues. And then the last two, undergrounding, as I mentioned before. Undergrounding is a one tactic that we use, taking our overhead lines and undergrounding them to prevent, wildlife interactions and vegetation things disturbing the lines. However, undergrounding it's not a fail-safe proof to stop outages, but it definitely helps in our wildfire mitigation plan. And then our Enterprise Command Center, this group, they monitor various different data points to determine, are we gonna potentially have to have a public safety shutoff, or are we gonna be in our sensitive wildfire safety settings? And below is our wildfire mitigation page that has all this information that I'm sharing now, and some other information that you guys can look at. So enhanced power line safety settings, as I mentioned before. So at this moment, the way that the system works is, if our based off the data points that I'll show on the next slide, if our internal team has determined that we're potentially in a situation where we're in a wildfire, type of environment, whether that be like the weather or wildfires in the surrounding areas, we'll go into this setting. And basically what our EPSS means is, if there's any type of disturbance, so thinking about those 6 that I showed you, so if there's a bird that gets in the capacitor bank, or there's a branch that falls on the line and causes any type of disturbance on the line, and we're in our EPSS, once that disturbance is felt on the line, on our power line, we have what we call reconnectors that provide power throughout the line. So our power lines aren't one full continuous source of power. So once a disturbance is felt on that line, the reconnector on that touching line will pop out, and that will cause an outage. And our current protocol at the moment is, once that outage occurs, we send a lineman crew to visually inspect the entire line to see what caused the outage. And once this team has determined what caused the outage, they work to make sure that the power is put back on. But when we are in the wildfire safety settings and when we're in our EPSS, that's what causes longer outages, because obviously from the time that the outage occurs to the time that we can actually get our linemen to inspect the line, that takes time. And depending on the type of disturbance, sometimes our linemen can just look at that line that they see, or sometimes they have to go all the way to the feeder or the substation. It just depends on the circumstance. Every outage is not the same when we are in our EPSS settings, but that's what definitely causes outages to occur longer when we are in these settings. And I always tell folks, if you look at the National Weather Service and they say that the day is a red flag day, you can safely assume that we are in wildfire safety settings and our enhanced power line safety settings are in effect. That's not always the case, but at this moment, that's a good beacon for folks to know kind of, what type of settings our power lines are in at the moment. So again, so these four buckets are some of the different data points and assets that we think about when we're thinking about having to have a public safety power shutoff. So first, again, looking at where we have assets at and where, you know, potentially danger could be lurking by our assets. We also work with the U.S. Forest Service and getting information from them just to determine what's in the area and what's close by our assets. Again, as I mentioned, we work with the National Weather Service using them as a data point, and we also have our own internal meteorologist team that we leverage as well, and we use that data to inform us on what we need to do from a public safety power shutoff and from our wildfire safety settings as well. And then, as you can see, we use different variations of external data from the National Fire Danger Rating System, AI-powered wildfire cameras, as I mentioned before, and other historical information that we've had in the past to help inform the best path forward to make sure that everyone in the community is safe. And I will be touching on Technosylvia in this next slide. So Technosylvia is a software that we have just in recent years started implementing. And since we implemented it, we have tracked internally a 50% decrease in down wires in wildfire zones from 2021 to 2022, and also another 50% reduction in number of ignitions of wildfires in our risk zones. And like I say, using Technosylvia, it is a software that we use in different ways from a modeling standpoint to get an idea where wildfires are potentially going to go, their potential paths, how fast can they grow, the speeds that they can grow. And this information is very vital for us so we can get ahead, or even, like I say, providing this information to our local stakeholders in ODM groups so they can have this information as well to help lessen the impacts of these wildfires and get ahead of them. So Technosylvia has definitely been a tool that we have used in recent years, and looking forward to leveraging it more as time goes on. And then again, like I say, this whole slide talking about, you know, what we're trying to do now and going forward for public safety shutoffs. Our plan is to be more ahead of it when we are talking with customers and stakeholders. As you can see, kind of a step down on how we want to have folks engage. So the goal is always to try to give folks the most ahead of time information. Sometimes, unfortunately, the way wildfires and severe weather works, that's not always the case. But as you can see in this slide, these are some of the benchmarks that we like to hit and we're aiming to hit as time goes on. Again, public safety shutoffs are not anything that Xcel expects to have on a reoccurring basis. It's just a tool that we do use. But since it is a tool that we've used in the past, obviously in this past April, and something that we will continue to have as an asset to make sure that customers are safe. These are the benchmarks that we will like to hit and are aiming to hit, you could say, if a PSPS is needed in the future. Comparing tongue twister here. So for our EPSS and our PSPS, when we have our EPSS, this is when we are in our wildfire safety settings. And basically what this means is if there's any disturbance on the line while we're in our enhanced power line safety settings, the line will disconnect if there's a disturbance on the line, and we have to send a full crew to inspect the line. And the outage time just depends on what caused the outage and also how fast the lineman team can inspect the line to determine everything's good to go before power is restored. With a public safety shutoff, the difference is this has been in a perfect world has been determined ahead of time that, hey, we have a wildfire that's coming near some of our assets or towns that we serve, or we have severe storms, high winds that are gonna highly impact our service areas. And then we proactively cut off the power to mitigate any damages that can further be caused if power was on. And in this situation, we don't send a lineman crew once the power goes off because we're the ones that are cutting the power off ourselves. And in this situation, the outages can last a little longer, just depending on why the power was cut off and what caused the PSPS to happen. But like I say, the big difference is with the enhanced power line safety settings, that outage can happen out of the blue, based off the one of the six outage causes that I showed early in the slides. But a public safety shutoff, again, using those data points with the National Weather Service, historical data, current data that's happening in the area. These outages are caused by Xcel ourselves, that we shut the power off to protect our customers in the areas that we serve. So those are the differences between those two. I know it can sometimes be tricky with the acronyms. And these next couple slides will kind of go over our wildfire mitigation plan that we're currently proposing to the PUC at the moment. So it encompasses a whole lot, but I always just like to just put it in layman terms from the situational awareness. Like I said, I'll be the first one to admit from the Xcel side, and I know folks on this call will agree. There definitely has been times on the Xcel side where some customers have felt that they haven't had the most up-to-date or the most pertinent information that affected them in certain situations with outages and whatnot. And a part of our wildfire mitigation plan is to improve upon how fast and who are we connecting with to provide that information. So making sure that customers are well informed on what's going on with outages, making sure that ODM groups are well informed so they can inform folks in the community for whatever reason Xcel might not have been able to communicate with, and just making sure that everybody has the most up-to-date relevant information so everybody can prepare accordingly. Other big aspects of our wildfire mitigation plan is making sure that we're technically sound, as I mentioned, using Technosylvia, using more drones, using the different technologies that are maybe not even in existence at this moment, but just making sure that we can be as technically sound as possible. If anything that's out there currently in the market that we can use, making sure if we do have to have an outage, try to segment it through different technologies that can help us do that on our grid. Again, making sure that our vegetation management is stays at that 94% and goes higher and doesn't go lower. And from our enhanced power line safety settings program and our public safety power shutoff program, making sure that in these programs that we're not leaving any blind spots. So from a communication standpoint, from our enhanced power line safety settings, currently right now we have to send a crew of linemen to inspect the line, where our team is looking at different ways of potentially maybe not having to send a full crew of linemen. Maybe we can implement drones to look at some of these outages to speed up the process of these outages. And from a public safety power shutoff standpoint, if that is determined that we need to do that, making sure, going back to that earlier slide I showed, making sure that we're giving the most amount of time possible so people can properly prepare and be aware, and also just have a better idea of why this was determined and when they can expect their power to come back on. So six different buckets that kind of build into it, but those are the big highlights. And this next slide breaks it down. So the overall proposed investment that Xcel has proposed is about $1.9 billion. And then the breakdowns, as you can see, the graphics, I won't bore you guys to death because I know I've been talking rant going on, but I guess just to highlight this whole slide is this whole program, basically everything I showed you in previous slides. Our wildfire mitigation plan is to beef everything up that we're currently doing, from making sure that we have the proper equipment, making sure that folks have the proper communication channels from that 1.5% that you see at the bottom. That kind of goes into making sure that we have up-to-date web pages, we have correct outage maps and things of that nature. So everything that we've currently been doing, this plan is to go well above and beyond what we've currently been doing to bolster that, to make sure that we have system resiliency and making sure that everybody's on the same page. And obviously from Xcel standpoint, making sure that we have the proper technologies and equipment to make sure that we're less prone to outages. And last two slides, and like I said, we'll open up for Q&A. Like I say, Xcel, we work with a lot of different partners in the community. Like I say, Red Cross, the food bank, like I say, different ODM groups, different local groups as well. But with all the groups that we work with, like I say, Xcel has a responsibility to make sure that we are providing information directly to our customers, you all, And like I say, using our external community partners, that's one aspect. But like I say, we owe direct line of communication to you guys as well for information, not just relying on our external partners. And like I say, as time goes on, we're looking forward to partnering with more key stakeholders to make sure that we're providing education like I'm doing today on wildfire information, any other information that's pertinent to customers, because wildfire information isn't the only thing that is pertinent and needed to be known by customers. I have my contact information at the bottom. Again, as I tell everybody during this slide presentation, I am the area manager for Boulder County and Broomfield. So whether it's wildfire information, smart meter issues, like I say, anything Xcel related and you don't know where to go or who to talk to or you've been having a hard time, please use me as a vehicle to get your questions answered. I try to be very punctual on responding to folks as fast as possible. A brief background on me, I've been on 6 different teams at Xcel. So outside of climbing the poles myself, I've basically worked with every team that we have internally. So if I don't have the answer, I definitely can find the answer for you. So again, like I say, my contact information is there. And like I say, anything Xcel related that you might have questions on, please feel free to reach out to me. And again, once this recording is shared, you'll be able to go to our webpage for our wildfire mitigation website that I brought your attention earlier. And this will have the same information I shared with you today and any updated information that Xcel we produce to the public, so you guys can have that information on hand. And my last slide before we open up for Q&A. So currently where we're at right now with our wildfire mitigation plan, we're in between stages 2 and 3. So the public comment hearings and additional written testimony from this PUC. So obviously we're trying to get to number 5 to get to that decision to determine what we can do. As a company, we've already started to implement some of these not protocols, but some of the initiatives that we have listed in our wildfire mitigation plan. But obviously, to fully commit, we need the PUC's approval. So again, at this moment today, we're kind of in between stages 2 and 3. But as time goes on, you guys will be able to go to our wildfire mitigation website that I pointed to in the previous slides. And that should be pretty live timeline on what's going on and the different things that we are approved to do. So I'm going to end talking. That is the slide presentation. Thank you all for letting me go through the slide deck. So I think we got about a little under 30 minutes. So ready for questions if folks have them.
Hey, Kyle, go ahead.
Hi, my name is actually Matt Voss. I am Representative Brown's aide, but for whatever reason, usually I can change my name on Zoom, but for
Oh,
today I can't, and that's all right.
I was wondering when I saw your name.
Yeah. So I am not Representative Kyle Brown, but Rep Brown represents Superior in Louisville and Lafayette. So good to make that connection with you, Nick. And we're actually meeting with Michael Sapp tomorrow to discuss this more, but just saw this on Superior's events and thought, hey, let me listen in to get a bit of a refresher before the conversation tomorrow. Just one question for now. I was just, as you were sharing more of everything going on in terms of ongoing fire mitigation work, can you share any more about like where in the state that's occurring? Do you know of things that are happening in Boulder County area, or which other areas of the state is the focus sort of starting with, such as with pole replacement and things like that? Is that in your house or no?
Yeah, so as far as where we're starting, it's more of a widespread effort. Boulder County in itself it's so we working with the National Weather Service. We have so our wildfire zones are tiered. So you start from 1 and go all the way up to 3. Boulder County, for the most part, is between 3 and 2. It kind of drops. It goes the higher you go up to like the Boulders and Longmonts, you're in wildfire 3. And then as you kind of come down, like closer to the Superiors, like I say, Broomfields, you're at a 2. So it's kind of in that 2 to 3 zone. To my knowledge, our team, obviously we're aware of these zones, but as our wildfire mitigation plan goes and how we implement these improvements, it's more of a widespread type of plan. Obviously, areas that have been hit the hardest in the past, they take a precedence, but that was even before our wildfire mitigation plan was proposed, if that makes sense. So that work was already kind of in motion. So at this moment, there's not a strategic plan to hit certain areas at the moment, but I say that by also saying that areas that we have had high impacts, high outages, that work is already starting. So that probably will continue when we get a decision from the PUC on our wildfire mitigation plan.
Gotcha. Cool, thank you. And just to clarify, tier 3 is less risk versus tier 1 is weird.
Well, 3 is the highest. So
3 is the highest. Got
yeah,
it.
so
Got it.
3 is
Okay.
the highest, 1 is the lowest. And like I say,
Okay.
Boulder County, it's like I say, if you just look at the county as a whole, the higher north you go, that's more of the 3. The lower you go is more of a 2. So
Gotcha.
I have to look at a map again. But I definitely know that Superior would be a 2 at the least.
Okay. And then one other follow-up question is, you talked quite a bit about trying to improve communications with people in the community so that people understand when you're doing a planned shut off and how long those things could last. From what I heard back in April, there was just some confusion about which areas were planned and which areas just happened because of, any of the reasons that you said, because, likely wind. If folks now wanted to try and prepare for a potential future event, how should they just get in touch with you, or how should they check that they're going to be getting those text messages or emails, whatever their preferred method of communication, to understand what's going on and what things you're doing during such an event?
Yeah, so first, we're gonna say on our Excel page, there's an option for folks to sign up for outage notifications. So you can either use that using your premise number that's located on your bill that you receive every month, or you can also use the cell phone number that is attached to that to your account. So those two sources, like I say, will connect you to our outage notification, so you get that type of mode of communication. As far as public safety shutoffs goes, like I say, if that is to be the case, um, that notification system plays a part in that as well. I will say our team is improving on who receives those, because obviously just because your name or cell phone number isn't on a bill doesn't mean that you're not living at a residence. So that kind of goes into that situational awareness piece that we're working on our back end to make sure that our internal systems can provide different avenues for folks to get that information. At this time, when it does come to public safety shutoffs, again, my team and our other internal folks reaching out to local stakeholder groups, so ODM groups, city managers and whatnot, to convey that information once it's already determined from our leadership group. Using updated outage maps on our website, and also having notification banners as well. And then again, just with our wildfire mitigation plan, that mode of communication is evolving to make it more accessible. But at the moment, those are kind of the two modes of folks signing up themselves using either their premise number or the account number associated to their home or residence that they're living at, or like I say, from more of I guess from a public safety shutoff standpoint, engaging with the city. Myself and my teammates, we engage with city members, stakeholders that can spread the word in that mode of communication outside of messaging that's put on our website or some of our social media channels that we leverage.
Cool. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.
Yep, no worries at all. And it was Matt, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I kept looking at the name. I was like, I wanted to call you Kyle, but I was like, I remember you said that that's not his name, so
Thank
appreciate
you. Appreciate
that.
it.
Anybody have any other questions? And then again, if no one had any other questions, like I say, Allison will be uploading this to your guys' community website. So like I say, my email will be attached to that as well. And like I say, if you do have further questions and you, like I say, it doesn't even have to be wildfire related. If it's anything Xcel related, please feel free to reach out to myself. And like I say, I will make sure that I connect you with the right folks, or if I can't answer the question myself. Like I say, it doesn't have to be wildfire related. If it's just anything Xcel related, I'll be able to assist in that venue. So,
Do you mind going back a slide, Nick, just to see your email one more time?
oh yeah, for sure. No, that's good to have that, right?
And we really appreciate you coming, Nick, and presenting. And um, if feel free to direct people to our video library if people are curious or ask you questions. We should have that up probably by next week. So.
Okay. No, that definitely sounds good. And like I say, I appreciate you guys having me. Again, like I say, just part of my job, and just, even taking the Xcel hat off, I feel like everybody should have the pertinent information that they need, because everybody on this call pays a bill to somebody. And when we pay good money, you want that service. So I definitely understand, folks wanting to be well informed on what they're paying for. So like I say, from my standpoint, whatever I can do to help, like I say, answer questions, like, again, doesn't have to even be wildfire related. Like I say, please reach out, because like I say, I too do not like being in the dark in different venues. So I only can imagine how some of you guys have felt just kind of in the past couple months with just certain outages that have affected you all. So wherever I can be a help, please reach out and let me know.
And I'll flag as well. I don't know whether you're planning on attending this event, but I also saw that Louisville was trying to have a similar type discussion next Monday night. That's the 14th at 6 p.m. Do you know what I'm talking about
Yeah,
yet?
so I will be leading that as well, but unfortunately we have to move that. So it won't be on the 14th, but that will be happening. So
Gotcha. Cool.
yep. So further communication will be coming out on that, but there will be an in-person presentation just like this in Louisville. So the date was the 14th, but they had to move it.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks everybody. And our video should be up sometime next week in our video library. And that would be at Superior, Colorado. Or sorry, I'm like giving you my email address. It's superiorcolorado.gov/ready. And then you can look under our video library. So thanks a lot and take care.
Appreciate it.
Bye,
Thank you, everybody.
everybody.